And when he came down, we looked at him. He'd long hair. His hair was down to here. It was really long. And he walked in, and everybody went, followed him as he walked in the room, And he took out his guitar, and we thought it was a Les Paul, but it was a Les Paul copy,
I looked at the other two guys. You could see them almost rolling their eyes back. Oh, Christ, man, what do we got here,
And he strapped this on, but he played quite good, He was really so we just played sort of a couple of numbers that we didn't. It was kind of blues numbers. We didn't even rehearse. We just jammed them, And he jammed quite well. So, but at that stage, Phil just disappeared. He said, "Hang on, I'll be back in about 5 minutes."
I actually thought I'd blown it. I didn't think I'd done a very good job, and I thought, well, so I went back to my mentality. Well, at least I gave it a shot, And as I was closing the lid, Phil said, "So, can I get your telephone number?" And, ooh, maybe I'm in with a chance here, right? I said, "Yeah," and I scribbled it down, and we all shook hands, and I left. As I was sitting in the flat that night around 10 o'clock in the evening, Phil called me up and said, "So, tell you what, we've been all listening to your stuff." See, they'd been recording it, and I hadn't known that. We've all been listening to what's been going on today, and we just want to know, do you want to join the band? And I just about jumped down the phone, to try to say yes. I couldn't say quick yes or no, because what we were playing on the day was absolutely the coolest music I'd ever been involved with up to that point, and I really wanted in a really huge way. So when he said, "Do you want in?" bam, yeah, I want in. He wanted 2 lead guitar players right off the bat, and there were reasons for that. Apparently on one tour with Eric Bell. Unfortunately, Eric, I don't know what happened there, but he quit in the middle of the set and just stormed off, right? And which left Brian and Phil to finish the set. He was probably the first drum and bass thing that actually went down, but he actually finished the set that way. And I guess he vowed that was never going to happen again. If somebody got a little diva-like and stormed off, well, there's another guy to actually keep the proceedings going. So
the dual lead guitars had a big influence, but also Phil was like a really good leader. He'd really sort of motivate you big time.
This is a big guy with a lot of sort of star quality to him. This guy's got something here. He's really takes command of the whole, the stage, the proceedings, what's going on. He's the focal point. So it wasn't real hard to recognize that.
Very charismatic guy, and very intense, in those days. I quite enjoyed that because I get a bit intense myself from time to time. A bit of clashing going on there somewhere. I mean, if you said anything against a song that he did, or something, I used to have wars with a man because he'd want to do it a certain way. I'm going, nah, not doing that. And refusing to play on tracks and stuff like that because he wanted them a certain way, But that's a bit of to and fro, and it kind of lends itself to energy, so to speak. Not destructive energy, but songs would happen because of the fact that we weren't agreeing on everything. So you go through and you look at whatever's there, and sometimes so we would go, okay, I've got you. And the other times it'd be, fuck off. And so it was kind of weird,
It's a funny thing, best friends can argue with each other. I mean, nose to nose, veins sticking out, really start screaming at each other, and it can be okay afterwards. If you don't know somebody that well, you can't really do that, And especially with a guy like Phil, most people probably wouldn't do that. But there was a thing between he and I that we knew that we could say anything we wanted to each other. We could get as mad as hell as we want to. We could scream, not punch, but we could scream, yell, really bring out any kind of emotion we want to. And afterwards, we would go down and have a drink, and everything would be okay. So we were great friends.
Nightlife was the first one we did together. It was a bit rushed, that one, because record companies, you know. In those days, they want 2 albums a year out of you, at least, and touring as well, so.
Well, you know, we had, because of that first jam session I already knew that, you know, there was probably more than half of the album already written. And the one great thing about Phil is, you know, he didn't want just to be the sole writer, you know.
Sometimes he'd come in with the acoustic and just strum it to you, and you know, as you do. And we'd just sit down and work something out for it. Very simple. But just the acoustic guitar and the vocal, right? Everything else was the boys. I don't think we get enough credit for it, to be honest. But
You'd be in rehearsal and you would play some guitar riff and you go, oh, what's that there? What's that? And I said, well, you know, it's, and I'd show me, go, great, let's use that, you know, and you come up with something else and go, oh, okay, let's add that, right? And all of a sudden now you became, you know, a writing partner too. And he made it clear straight off the bat that any sort of songs you've got, ideas, whatever, don't be shy, bring them forward, you know. He did want people to come in. He didn't want it to be Phil Lynott and Thin Lizzy. He wanted it to be Thin Lizzy, full stop.
all I wanted to do was go out and play the guitar and get wrecked. So when I didn't realize that you make all your money out of publishing. And when I found out, I'm looking at the back of the album cover and it's Lynott, 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 Lynott. I'm going, oh, maybe it was, I don't know. I know it wasn't all in it. But he sparks a seed in you. That's the biggest thing, you know. A lot of the arrangements are done by me and Scott. But he would spark it off to start it, you know, which is a knack in itself, you know.
Brian was such a great guitar player back then that, and I figure I was probably at that point, you know, a little less accomplished than Brian was. You know, there would be really tough spots to try to get a lead guitar, and you know, you know, Phil would look at me and I go, no way, take it away, Brian, and he'd do it, you know, and he did such a great job with it, you know. Brian was a really great guitar player at that point. You know, he had his sounds down. He had this really great style that, you know, people even to this day emulate. He came up with some really, really great stuff.
Nice one, Scott.
We didn't really give much thought to it then, but I think really we were a live band, you know. In the studio, it was okay, but it was hard to capture that live feel, you know. In the studio, it's a bit alien, you know, for me.
Studio was a bit more abrasive, so to speak, but live it was kicking. I always did with Lizzy live, you know.
We just loved being out on the road. You'd be out there 6, 7 months at a time, and you know, you get to that 6th month and your ass is dragging and you're real tired and you kind of can't wait to get home, and you realize that when you get home, you really don't have any home to go to, so within 2 weeks you're calling up the office going, so when are we going back out on the road, you know? So it was kind of this kind of strange cycle that treadmill that we kept ourselves on, and we liked the treadmill. We liked the pain. We probably really should have, in fact, we should have, you know, spent a lot more time, you know, in preparation for the albums, you know, put the microscope on a little better, you know, while we were spending all this money making the albums to be able to go out on the road. Well, we had a great fan base, you know, because we'd been doing it now for a number of years, and we never thought of ourselves as that kind of band where, okay, we're not going to do Leicester because we can go over here and we can fill it, you know, a place twice as big, so we don't need to do that. We didn't think in those terms. No, we will go do that, and we will do that, and we'll do that, and we won't miss out on anybody, you know. And I think a difference that Phil actually made with the fans was he made sure that after every night, anybody that wanted to come back for a photograph or you know, an autograph or a chat or anything, you come on back. And you'd see the disappointment on a lot of people's face. This is it? No confetti balloons or titties or what? You know, come on.